Welcome to Dare, the show for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders who dare to shape the future. Your hosts today are Ned Hayes and Cecilia Mariani. Dare is brought to you by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is excited to welcome Stephen Green. He's a strategy operations leader across Portland. He has a huge track record of helping founders, helping startups. He is the executive director of Business for a Better Portland. He's been involved with a number of groups across Portland, including serving as board chair of Built Oregon and being involved with companies in Portland going all the way back to WeWork and the WeWork labs here. So welcome, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Ned. Thanks for having me, man.
So tell us first, what is Business for a Better Portland?
Yeah, Business for a Better Portland is a business chamber. So we're a member network. We've got just about 400 members, small businesses. All 98% of our members are here in the city of Portland, and we're a group of businesses advocating for ourselves and one another, and leveraging business for good to help causes directly related to business, but also some causes that are seemingly unrelated directly to business, but using the power of business for good.
Right. Well, you've been such an advocate, Portland and in Oregon writ large for quite a while. I remember, I guess a while ago, you started advocating that Portland could do more for small businesses. And one of your proposals recently, I think, was really endorsed by the mayor's office, by the Portland Business Journal, of establishing an office of small business. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So I'm a recovering banker and venture capitalist. I'm good with spreadsheets. Don't ask me to do much more than that. But I worked for the city of Portland for almost 10 years. And one of the first things I saw while I was there was the disconnectedness that we had in the community amongst, the resources that we had, the role that the city and the state and the county play, and then the questions and needs that potentially, in particular, small business owners had. And so one of the things that, I always thought was like, man, we're such a great resource community that most people just don't know the resources that we have. And so the analogy I've always used is, we've got one of the best airports in the country for small businesses, but we just don't have an air traffic control tower. And so the thought was to have an office of small business or center for entrepreneurship that would really act as that air traffic control tower and helping people understand, which runways to go to when.
Right. So that was just passed a few weeks ago or by the city council as part of their 8.2 billion spending plan, right? And this has been a long time coming.
Yeah. So Prosper Portland's taking the lead on creating the Office of Small Business. And so this is coming out of the work that they did in creating the city's latest economic development strategy called Advance Portland. And so it calls out specifically having an Office of Small Business. And so the allocation that City Council just approved earlier this month will fund the creation of 3 more positions, small business liaisons, that will help, establish what the Office of Small Business could be. Yeah. So it's a great start to really putting together a robust system that has that air traffic control tower.
Yeah. Well, and Portland is really interesting because I think of the technology domain because I come out of a background at Microsoft and Intel and writing software, but Portland has technology in its blood veins, so to speak, but we also have this great entrepreneurial culture of actually making things, building things. So you've been really involved with that much longer than I have. So can you tell us about why Portland builds things and what that's all?
Yeah. No, I think, one of the ways I explain it is, we've always been a place that cares about craft. I think if you were on the wagon train back in the middle of the 19th century, and you were on the Oregon Trail, you came to a point in time in the Oregon Trail where you'd go south to get rich in the gold rush, or you continue west to go and build something and do hard work with community.
Wait,
I
this
think,
sounds familiar. Go south to California for the gold rush and go
yeah,
like Oregon to actually build something. That
right, right.
kind of resonates.
And so I think that exists today. You talked about technology. The mother of all the technology that we have here is Tektronix, right? So a hardware manufacturer is what brought us Intel and all the other things in our amazing technology cluster that we have here today. And that's all rooted in craft. And so I think it's natural that we continue to lean into that. But what comes along with that is we really from a competitive landscape standpoint, we over accentuate leaning into collaboration over competition. And so it's very on the nose and the norm to see people that are foes in the business world supporting one another and helping people start a competitor's business in the same space, in the same industry.
Right, right. I mean, places like Salt and Straw, Stumptown, other places have really birthed a number of people in the beverage and sweets industry, right?
Yeah, greasers. I mean, you can go back. We've got $5 billion food making businesses here in the state of Oregon, right? So that's just leaning into, we create brands. That's what we're great at.
Yeah. Well, what was your time like as chair of the board of Built Oregon? You probably go through some changes.
Yeah, so I'm one of the founding board members. We wanted to lean into us being the Silicon Flourish for consumer packaged good companies. And so a big piece of that work is helping people understand what scale looks like and also tapping into the amazing mentor network that we have. So we've got over 250 mentors that are always willing to give their time, talent, and treasure to be able to support up and coming companies. And so being able to, connect early stage founders with people that can not only answer their questions, but also help them ask the questions that they don't even know to ask is really, really important in becoming successful. So we've done that, and then just try and do the simple stuff. My favorite baseball player of all time is Tony Gwynn. If you needed a home run, he was going to hit you a single. If you needed a single, he was going to hit you a single, right? And so, if you look at the work that we do, it's just, one foot in front of the other, hitting singles, being curious, seeing where people are at. Over the pandemic, we did a series of dozens of virtual events just to help business owners around the state, understand what their next steps were and what their options were and how they can get help for what they want to do next.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating to me too that you've been able to contribute so much here and you came out of the banking industry. Just your roots were back at Bank of the West and then you moved into kind of running WeWork's lab. So how did your career grow? That's a fascinating history to me.
Yeah, both my parents were founders. So my mom had a technology startup that I saw her, start and launch and raise venture for in the 90s. My dad built a career working in the technology space as a high school dropout. Did that, starting his own companies. And so I was never too far removed from the startup experience. I started my first business while I was a junior in college, selling sneakers online. And so the hustle's, I guess, always been in me. And then
Classic.
as I got in the financial world, I always leaned into the stories of people starting something from nothing and being there in the early stages. So it's been a joy to be there early on when Kim was starting Salt and Straw and other businesses around town. And I realized, I'm the guy, I get excited about the stuff being down on the ground, getting ready to fly, as opposed to once something's at 35,000 feet. That's where
Mhm.
I think I'm less passionate. And so constantly looking for who else is looking to build something and getting off the ground and see how I can be helpful.
Right. So what does Business for a Better Portland actually do kind of day to day, blocking and tackling to help entrepreneurs?
Yeah, good question. So, I think it's a couple different things. So on the advocacy front, it's helping connect people with the resources that are available. And so a lot of our members, they don't have money for a public relations person or a government relations person. And so we're helping them understand, why they should be paying attention to what's happening at City Hall and how it can potentially impact them at their business. And then conversely, we're translating things for the public sector and helping them understand, what the purview may be on different decisions or policies that they make and how it might impact local retail businesses or smaller businesses or how it may create more barriers for people to start and grow businesses here in Portland.
Yeah, I know Rick here in town of Pi calls himself a dot connector. It sounds like you're
Yeah.
a professional dot connector, right?
I learned a lot from him. I mean, I think I learned early on in my career in finance that the most important capital is social capital, right? And I think people are pretty familiar with the phrase that in banking, cash is king. I think they're less familiar with the second part of that, in that trust is queen. And so, you can have all the capital in the world, but if somebody doesn't trust you, you're really not going to be able to move things very far. And so, I think being able to cultivate and build relationships in community is really important, but also being able to share those relationships and trust with other people in community is just as important. So, as I get through doors, how do I make sure that I keep those doors open for other folks and then connect folks along the way so that they can, have those relationships as well?
Yeah. Well, any particular names of people who you think people should be connected to in Portland,
Oh
or also
gosh,
institutions, maybe?
so many, so many. It really depends on the industry that you're in. I've got some human beings that I think are just great people, and they also happen to be business owners. So I'm always going to bring up Ian Williams from Dead Stock Coffee. He left his dream job at Nike to become a barista. And now has built a brand that's been on the cover of Barista Magazine, the largest coffee magazine in the world. People like Brian Steelman from Porque No. Not only is the Brian's Bowl one of the best meals we can have in the city, but he's also one of the best humans in the city as well. And all the work that he's been doing for decades behind the scenes, I think it just goes part and parcel with the identity of Portland and what it means to be a founder here, which means, being really, really curious and confident in the business that you run, but also making sure that you're helping community every step of the way. So those are two people that come to mind directly on as far as folks that I consistently connect people to
Yeah.
around helping them know their path and how to consistently move forward.
Well, one thing you mentioned too at the beginning of this conversation is the way that entrepreneurs here help each other and
Yep.
people give back. And there's a real culture of kind of uplifting the whole community, which is a powerful thing. And you've done that, especially with creating Pitch Black back in 2015. I mean,
Yeah.
just a few notes for people who don't know about Pitch Black. Portland winners of Pitch Black have gone on to raise 45 million in funding since 2015. And so it's probably grown from there. 120 founders have pitched their ideas, and it's grown across the nation, right?
Yeah, yeah, we've done events in Portland, Seattle, Austin, and Philadelphia. We've had over 3,000 people attend our events. We've gotten over almost $1 million into the pockets of Black businesses with the events that we've done, and it's been amazing. We've got 74 amazing alumni just here in Oregon that we continue to find ways to support along the way, and we have a lot of fun while doing it. So it's been a really cool marriage of the idea of Shark Tank and I think America's Funniest Home Videos, where the audience gets to participate as opposed to just having some sharks say what's good and what's not. So it's cool to go and see kids get curious and be able to take part in the events as well.
Right. I keep pitching my 16-year-old to jump on stage. She's an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, and I swear she's going to be running a company like the guy
yeah,
who's with stock because
yeah,
seed is there. I think it just gets
yeah.
trumped out in a few people. People
No,
have,
I think you're spot on. Our oldest is a senior in high school, and she started a business when she was 14, and it was all her idea. And I think kids today they learn to be scared and to think things are not for them, as opposed to when they're young. It's like, oh no, I can just go and do that. And
Mhm.
so, how do we ignite that more and help people move forward as kids, as opposed to thinking, I don't know enough, or I didn't go to the right school, or
I don't have the
whatever.
right degree or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I'm curious where things are going in the future for you. I mean, just to review, you're heading up Business for a Better Portland. You've had some of your ideas move forward with the mayor's office. Pitch Black is going
Yeah.
at great accelerated volume. So what's next?
I think continuing to double and triple down on Portland, man. I think the more I travel, the more I appreciate Portland, and being a native means a lot to me. I think our best days are ahead of us. I say downtown's on sale right now, and so it's great to see a lot of businesses going and saying, "Man, I haven't been able to afford to be downtown in the last 5 to 10 years. Now I can afford it." And
Mhm.
so, what role can we play at Business for a Better Portland and the work that we do at Built to help people make informed decisions on, finally getting a space in downtown, whereas they couldn't afford it before? And then for Pitch Black, we've got some announcements coming up, but continue to do the event in a big way. It's become the largest one-day pitch event for Black entrepreneurs in the country, but also help the businesses that are involved scale. Black and Latinx businesses are the fastest growing segment of businesses in the United States, but they're growing small businesses. And so how do we help them grow, scalable traded sector businesses that can really create wealth and resilience over time? So that's the work that we're working on with some partners that we're going to be announcing here shortly.
No, fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, you always have things in motion, don't you?
always. Only forward, man. Only forward.
Yeah. Well, so one of the big questions we ask is
Yeah.
what do you dare to dream? And that could be phrased as what world are you creating or what future vision do you have for Portland? But what do
Yeah.
you dare to dream, Stephen?
Yeah. I think again, I'm a Tony Gwynn mindset kind of guy. So this may not seem like a real moonshot to most folks, but I guess my big dream from an entrepreneurship standpoint is that everyone can become a founder. And that doesn't mean you become a founder for 10, 20, 30 years. Maybe you do something over a summer or over a spring break. But I think few things compare to the feeling of having complete strangers go and pay their hard-earned money for something that you came up with at your kitchen table, right? I think there's a self-realization that comes along with that. That's really hard to beat. How do we make that easier and more attainable for more folks? How do we help kids go through high school and know at some point in their high school they're going to run a business themselves, whether it's for a month or a weekend or a semester or whatever? They're going to go through, and by the time they graduate, they've run a business. It's in their name. They've got their own website. All that stuff they learned about, customer segmentation, customer acquisition costs, and all that stuff. How do we make that easier and cheaper for more people to be able to do that? I think that's my big dream for us here in Portland.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Ned.
Thanks to our guests today for their great insights on DARE, the podcast for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders. If you'd like your story to be featured on DARE, just contact us at info@darwaft.com. DARE is brought to you by Darwaft, the tech team that can make your vision a reality.